The ratings are in for this week's edition of AEW Dynamite, of course, featuring the controversial decision to air the footage of the backstage altercation between CM Punk and Jack Perry at AEW All In last year. We'll let you know all of the details on that, plus more details on the backstage reaction in both AEW and WWE to the footage airing last night on Dynamite. Will Ospreay, he took a swipe at Triple H during his promo on Dynamite last night, and reportedly, it was his idea. Hook, the FTW champion, could reportedly explore free agency later on this year when his contract with AEW expires, possibly leading to WWE interest. An update on AEW Fight Forever and the issues facing that game, and the pay-per-view schedule for AEW for the remainder of this year has been revealed. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling, and the ratings are in for this week's edition of AEW Dynamite on TBS. Of course, many people fascinated, curious to see if the promotion and the inclusion of the now infamous footage of CM Punk and Jack Perry getting into a backstage altercation at AEW All In, which was broadcast last night, aired for the first time in public on AEW Dynamite on TBS, if it would lead to a substantial increase in terms of overall viewership, but also the key demographic as well. And it has led to increases for both metrics for AEW. Whether or not it's a positive remains to be seen. Now, the viewership and total demographic rating has just come in the last couple of minutes at the time recording this video. And according to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, AEW Dynamite on TBS has drawn 819,000 viewers on TBS, as I mentioned. It's also brought in a 0.30 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic. Now, for some overall positives, I suppose, when it comes to Dynamite, this is the highest total viewership since the February 28, 2024 edition of AEW Dynamite. So a highest total viewership in close to 2 months for the show on TBS. And when it comes to the 18 to 49 demographic, well, actually, it's the highest 18 to 49 demographic since January 17, 2024, the highest demo in close to 3 months. Now, in terms of competition, Dynamite ranked number 3 for the day on cable in the 18 to 49, behind 2 NBA games on ESPN. In terms of the total viewership, once again, it marks a 9% increase from last week's number of 752,000 viewers. In terms of the 18 to 49 demographic versus last week, it's a sizable increase of 30% from last week's 0.23 number. Now, in terms of the current P2 average, the current total viewership average versus last year, it's actually still down 9% from this time last year. Same when it comes to the 18 to 49 demographic, it's down 7% from this time last year as well. Now, when it comes to the quarter hour ratings, these come courtesy of WrestleNomics, so shout out to them. Be sure to subscribe to their Patreon and check out all of their content. It's really excellent and informative stuff. Many people were wondering, will we go and see an increase because of this segment involving the airage of the footage between Jack Perry and CM Punk? And the answer is yes, but sizable? Again, it's up to you to decide. Now, of course, as we always see for AEW Dynamite on TBS, a strong lead-in meant the first quarter hour had 981,000 total viewers and a 0.33 rating in the 18-49 demographic. That represents 433,000 viewers in that 18 to 49 range. That was for that Samoa Joe Swerve Strickland ramp angle, and then going into the Adam Copeland versus Penta El Zero Miedo TNT Championship match. But I suppose really the key part on which people were wondering about was this footage. Did it lead to a bump up when it came to the quarter hour? And it did in terms of total viewership versus the trend from the last 90 days. As you can see in the third quarter hour there, between 8:30 and 8:45, this is where they actually aired the security footage from AEW All In. There was 880,000 viewers tuned in, which again is slightly above the trend of the last 90 days for that third quarter hour. In terms of the 18 to 49 demographic, there was a substantial increase from the trend from the last 90 days. There was 449,000 viewers in the 18 to 49 range, which represents a 0.34 rating in that demographic, which again is higher and certainly substantially higher than any other point in the show, marked a high point for the show in that demographic rating. So certainly you could argue in the advertiser section, it did lead to a substantial increase from the norm anyway. After that, the show largely went to point, kind of staying to where it it's been the last 90 days, ending the show with a show low of 723,000 viewers in terms of total viewership. Also as well, when it comes to the 18 to 49 demographic, a show low of 353,000, representing a 0.27 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic. Now, Tony Khan, what's his reaction? Well, his reaction is one of happiness, clearly, because on social media, he's posted out the following this evening saying, quote, just got to the great news from TBS. Last night, Wednesday night, AEW Dynamite up 29% from last week and up 17% over the prior 6-week average. Thank you all watching AEW Wednesdays. See you at a stacked TBS wrestling show Wednesday in Indy and rampaging and colliding this weekend on TNT. So what do you make of the ratings for this week's edition of AEW Dynamite? What do you make of the quarter-hour ratings? What do you make of the decision to air the footage? Did it pay off for AEW in terms of total viewership and key demo, or did it not pay off, and will the ratings go back to what they've been previously next week? And what do you make of Tony Khan comments as well? Let me know your thoughts, reaction to all of it in the comment section below. Now, I mentioned when it comes to the reaction to the footage, we've got more reaction from WWE and AEW. Of course, the CM Punk Jack Perry footage aired last night on AEW Dynamite, and it was reported last weekend by Sean Ross Sapp, and of course confirmed during the broadcast that it was the actual footage and not a bait and switch. Now, regardless of how you feel about the footage or the decision to air it, Fightful say they've collected some reactions from the wrestling world as to their thoughts on what transpired last night on Dynamite. Now, Fightful say most of the reactions they have heard were very tepid, with many saying it was much of what they expected and that it was a one-night ratings ploy. Now, there was talk of the mood decreasing backstage at AEW Dynamite after the footage aired, more of the dread of social media bullshit than anything else that they heard. Now, Fightful have learned that Tony Khan had the idea last week following CM Punk's interview with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour, and the numerous shots last week in the media from WWE personalities accelerated the decision to air the footage last night on Dynamite. By late last week, creative was set for the video, and the decision to promote it right after WrestleMania was planned. Now, regarding the rumors that the Young Bucks were not in favor of the segment, this was a story that initially came from Wade Keller of PW Torch, suggesting that the Young Bucks weren't comfortable or weren't in favor of the segment airing. According to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, that's not accurate. Fightful have been told that isn't true, and they were actually fine with doing the angle. Now, Fightful have been told FTR were also given a heads up about the decision to promote it, and they also signed off on the angle as well, and were in line of the thinking that if it adds to the storyline or the buzz surrounding it, then that's fine. Fightful say they've also heard of no issues between CM Punk and FTR as a result of the footage airing last night and the angle that followed it. The general response that Fightful have heard from AEW talent was that they felt this added to the importance of having a huge show for AEW Dynasty, and they didn't think the full pay-per-view schedule announcement the following day was an accident, which we'll get to later on. Now, within WWE, there were plenty of people talking about the situation, but most that Fightful spoke to were exhausted after an insane WrestleMania week, so they didn't particularly care. Now, Fightful say they heard no particularly surprised reactions or anything that happened that anyone didn't expect. CM Punk is not getting punished, scolded, or anything like that within the company. Now, there were a few wrestlers who considered the video a, quote, self-own, and others who said they simply didn't care and were watching it just out of curiosity. A long-time name that has been in WWE and AEW said that this is no worse than anything that happened during the Monday Night Wars eras, and there are examples across the board of this happening back then. The prevailing hope backstage was that hopefully this will benefit Jack Perry, both in his reaction from the crowd wrestling in Chicago, and hopefully bringing him back to AEW to capitalize on the situation as a whole. Elsewhere in the AEW locker room, there are an actual sort of wish someone else would have got that TV time reactions. Several in AEW felt like there was a no-win situation after CM Punk's Helwani interview, him poking fun at Ospreay, Triple H poking fun at Ospreay, Michael Cole's references to AEW, and Pat McAfee taking shots at Tony Khan and AEW. Now, when it comes to the future of AEW, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, there is no concern from any talent that they've spoken to across either AEW and WWE that this is a company killer and will be a pivotal moment in the demise of AEW. And most everyone agreed that the online discourse and hyperbole was something that AEW likely expected. Now, of course, it is worth remembering that reactions like these are based only on the responses that Fightful got, and of course are subjective in nature. So what do you make of some more reaction when it comes to that. What do you make of course, the Young Bucks now seemingly actually being on board with the angle as opposed to the report that came out earlier? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section below. Now, what about Will Ospreay's promo? Well, there's been a bit of back and forth reporting on Will Ospreay's promo today as well, last night on AEW Dynamite, because Dynamite this week featured a few WWE shots, references, and answers, one of which was from the aerial assassin Will Ospreay, where he responded to a shot Triple H took at him, saying, quote, "When I see people trying to make it, and they pick the job where they go, well, I work less and the schedule's lighter, okay, I'm glad I didn't get you. Because if you're not in it for the grind in that point in your career, you have no business being here." Ospreay responded on AEW Dynamite saying, quote, "Normally, I wouldn't rise to this type of bait, right? But seeing how the guy who said it is only in the position he is in because he was grinding on the boss's daughter, you have no business telling me what the grind is all about, my friend, because you have no idea what I fight for," end quote. Now, Ospreay did have talks with WWE, but established to Fightful that not uprooting his family in the UK while still working a full-time AEW schedule was very important to him. There were rumours that emerged Thursday morning that Ospreay was fed this line and was a bit uncomfortable with saying it. However, Fightful have been told by sources close to Ospreay and the situation that actually it was Ospreay's idea. Regarding the Will Ospreay promo, Fightful have been told that he was fine cutting that promo and there were no issues in that regard. He actually came into work with the creative team on the promo. The shots that were taken at him in the media last weekend puzzled wrestlers across multiple companies, with one WWE talent saying that it was clear that he was attempting to be respectful of the process, and WWE after opting to go with AEW for the sake of his family. Fightful have been told that he ran the promo by several people backstage, and at one point a shot at CM Punk was considered after CM Punk's tattoo line last week regarding Ospreay. However, considering the nature of Dynamite and the CM Punk footage in the Young Bucks segment, many felt that was overkill and they decided against that. Therefore, they didn't go with it. So what are your thoughts that actually the whole promo, or at least the majority of it, was Will Ospreay's idea and he was very comfortable doing it, particularly the shots against Triple H? Let me know your thoughts about that too. Now, this is a really interesting story because possibly Hook, the FTW champion in AEW, could be set to explore free agency later on this year with some interest from WWE. A popular second-generation pro wrestler is poised to let WWE and AEW compete for his talents. SE Scoops is reporting that they have learned that Hook is interested in exploring his options in free agency once his contract with All Elite Wrestling expires later this year. A source familiar with WWE's recruitment strategy commented, quote, "I can see WWE clearly being interested in him." Of course, Hook is the son of wrestling legend and AEW broadcaster Taz. He joined AEW in 2020 and is known as the cold-hearted, handsome devil. The 24-year-old achieved a great deal during his young career with AEW thus far. He's in his second reign as the FTW champion, a title introduced by his father in ECW. Hook has not only improved his in-ring skills, but also shown a level of innate charisma that you either have or you don't. Time at the Performance Center and integration to WWE's unparalleled talent development system could significantly boost his long-term prospects. Wrestling's free agency market is currently booming, with WWE and AEW both aggressively pursuing talent and offering substantial sums to secure contracts. Recently, AEW has had notable success in securing these free agents, signing wrestlers like Will Ospreay, Mercedes Moné, Kazuchika Okada, and Adam Copeland. Meanwhile, WWE has attracted the likes of Julia and several former AEW stars, including CM Punk, Jade Cargill, Andrade, Brian Pillman Jr., Sean Spears, and others. It's also been reported that they have recently signed Jacob Fatu, as well as Tama Tonga, a former New Japan star. Of course, the landscape could shift dramatically once again soon, as the contracts of WWE superstars such as Becky Lynch, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, and Sheamus are set to expire in the coming months. So what do you think is going to happen when it comes to the future of Hook in AEW? Let me know your prediction for that one too. Now, a really interesting story here about AEW Fight Forever and some of the issues the game faced and how essentially they had to put it out because they were so over budget. Now, when AEW Fight Forever, then unnamed, was announced back in November 2020, the excitement among fans for the young promotion was very high. People were eager to play as their favorite AEW wrestlers on the system of their choice. However, things maybe have taken a bit of a turn for the worse with this new article when it comes to from Insider Gaming. This is really fascinating stuff. Unfortunately, however, that excitement began to dwindle as information on the game came few and far between. From the revelation that the creation suite would be limited for created wrestlers to an outdated roster, many were upset about the state of the game. When launched, the game received mixed reviews to say the least. Concerns from players ranged from the aforementioned roster, a limited mode offering, and multiple bugs at launch. Now, the review from Insider Gaming put it as the wait for sale range, saying at the time, quote, "It's clear there's a foundation here of a great game, but at this point, AEW Fight Forever needed more time in developmental before hitting the main roster," end quote. Now, nearly a year after its release, the state of things remains tense around the game, with questions regarding how much money was spent on development, Yuke's future working with AEW, the future of the company in gaming, and much more. Now, multiple sources within both AEW and around the development at Yuke's have said to Insider Gaming that the game shouldn't have been announced as early as it was. One source went as far as saying that announcing it as soon as they did nearly killed the game from the start. Quote, "It put even more pressure on the developers to not only deliver something great, but deliver something faster than what it should have been," a source told Insider Gaming, on the condition of anonymity due to still being around the game. Quote, "The longer we went without updating people, the more pressure we felt, which led to, for some people, carelessness with what was being done," end quote. As more of the game was shown publicly, those working on the game took note of the perception immediately. While almost everyone believed they had a good game being made with a foundation being laid, many felt that keeping the game in development and holding back at least another year or so would have been for the best. So that leads to the question, why did it get released in June of 2023? Quote, "We needed to recoup money from development," one source said. While AEW owner Tony Khan has, at least publicly, made it known about not being afraid to invest high amounts of money into things around the company, there was a belief and feeling that many that the game was one area that money had to be made back. Quote, "They, AEW, knew they were going to lose money on this game," another said. "But there was a lot of pressure to make money back solely because of how over budget the game went. That budget, which wasn't small to begin with, fell somewhere between 1.5 to 2 times the original expected development cost. This led to a number of features planned for the game at launch being either delayed or cut entirely." Quote, "Around a third of the planned launch features didn't happen, and some may still not happen at all," Insider Gaming was told. One of the features that was talked about for launch but was ultimately added as part of the game's DLC plan was the Beat the Elite game mode. The mode, which was released for the game in December 2023, sees players face 10 randomly selected wrestlers with the goal of getting to the Elite and beating one of the in-game members of the group. Another feature that was planned and even publicly mentioned as being a part of the game at one point was cross-platform play. Insider Gaming was told that testing of the feature produced too many issues during development, leading it to being scrapped with plans to revisit it down the line. When specifically down the line it was said that, quote, "Your guess is as good as anyone's." Now, for the future of the game, since its release, AEW Fight Forever has released regular DLC updates to the game. These updates, however, usually feature one added wrestler at a time, with things like cosmetic additions for created wrestlers, new soundtrack songs, and in some cases, new arenas like the now old AEW Dynamite Arena, as well as a new beachfront arena as well. Though new traditional match types haven't been added to the game, the plan was always to introduce more variety to the game as it aged. Stadium Stampede, the game's take on a battle royale genre, was added as a free update to the game and was well received both internally and externally. Many at the time felt it was a step towards adding more matches to the game as part of future updates. That said, things like adding trios matches, sources say, continue to be more difficult to implement than the Stadium Stampede was. Quote, "They're trying, but it just feels like something that may have to wait for the next game if they don't put extra resources into it now," one person said about adding bigger matches to the current game. The source did acknowledge that discussions on how to implement these bigger match types could be done. Where those discussions went, however, is currently unknown. Speaking of the next game, there is a lot of doubt surrounding the continued relationship of AEW and Yuke's. While the relationship started off strong, it continued to go downhill throughout the game's development and remains tense as work continues. Quote, "No one knows what's going to happen when the planned updates are done," sources said. "We know AEW wants a second game to be made, but as far as who will make it, that's completely up in the air. Them, that being AEW, owning the game engine puts the ball in their court for where they go from here." Now, currently, Ukes is still working on updates to the game per its agreement with AEW. As of now, the plans are to finish up all existing agreements before a firm decision is made on the future. So what are your thoughts when it comes to AEW Fight Forever? Is the game a flop? Is there still potential when it comes to the game? Or are you just waiting for the next AEW game and maybe they'll get it right that time? Let me know your thoughts about that too. And finally, an update on the AEW pay-per-view schedule for the remainder of this year. Now, AEW has released its full pay-per-view schedule for 2024. Following Revolution back in March, there will be 8 more All Elite Wrestling pay-per-views in 2024. As was the case in 2023, there will be just 1 week between All In at Wembley Stadium and All Out. The shows take place on August 25th and September 1st, respectively. The company will round out the year by heading to Orlando, Florida for December 28th for World's End. Fans were quick to notice that Wrestle Dream would take place at the Tacoma Dome in Tacoma, Washington. Given the arena has a capacity of just over 20,000, there's been speculation it could host the final match of Bryan Danielson's full-time career. The American Dragon hails from just down the road in Aberdeen, Washington, so certainly that could be an indication of something in the future, certainly as well. And also, many people are quick to point out that Forbidden Door is set for Sunday, June 30 in Long Island, New York at the USB Arena. Of course, that is different from the previous planned location. Of course, it was announced earlier this week that it's not going to be taking place at Arthur Ashe Stadium. What this means for the Grand Slam edition of Dynamite and Rampage remains to be seen. But what do you make of the pay-per-view schedule for 2024 for AEW? Let me know your thoughts about that too in the comment section below. But there you go, guys. This is the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.